Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Martin, and I'm not going to try to do an Australian accent as I thought about doing at the start of this podcast.
Oh no, Damon, why not? I'm Patrick Guerra, mate.
I thought about it for the briefest of seconds.
I wish you had.
This is going to go so wrong. Like I know it's not.
Oh, that's exactly why you should have done it.
I'm gonna get a call from like Alexander Volkanovski from the UFC. Be like, "What are you doing, man? Like, what?"
Yeah, mate, what the?
It's gonna be bad.
That's great.
Yes, I wanted to bust out the Australian accent because tonight we are revisiting our old pals, the Philippou brothers, for their latest film, Bring Her Back.
Yes, Damon, Bring Her Back, released in May of 2025, starring Billy Barrett as Andy, Sally Hawkins as Laura, Jonah Wren Phillips as Oliver, and Sora Wong as Piper. As you mentioned, Damon, written by Danny Philippou and Bill Hinsman, and returning to the director's chair, Damon, Danny and Michael Philippou, aka the Raka Raka brothers. Here we are with a hotly anticipated movie, Damon, Bring Her Back.
Yes, and for those that don't remember, Talk to Me was our shared #1 horror movie of 2023. Am I remembering the year?
I believe it was 23, yes.
Yeah, and we actually, we were very open about our relationship with that movie. We saw a premiere at San Diego Comic-Con. You and I got a chance to talk to the Philippou brothers at the premiere. We actually sat right next to them at the premiere. That was totally by accident. Talked to them afterwards. We ended up having them on the podcast, got to interview them. So yeah, like we had a really good relationship with that film, and so I do feel a danger in that sometimes because when you love something so much, or you love a film or and you get along really well with the filmmakers, it's impossible not to feel a little colored or maybe biased, maybe that is the word, towards their work, because you wanna support them. And so I had to do my best to sit down when I watched Bring Her Back and just try not to even think that it was the Philippou brothers, if that makes sense. Like I just wanted to watch it as a movie experience and not think about the filmmakers, because I love Talk to Me, and the Philippou brothers were awesome, like really cool dudes. So I had to
great guys.
I had to kind of bring down my expectations, even though realistically I was super excited for this one.
I hotly anticipated, because as you mentioned, Damon, Talk to Me is, and I still to this day defend it, a fantastic and very original work. Very, very original stuff. It really blew us away in a year where we had like When Evil Lurks, which was another movie that absolutely blew me away. And I nearly gave them my tie as my #1 movies, because I was like, these movies are too great. But I had a long-standing relationship with Talk to Me, actually, because I had seen it at South by Southwest completely blind. I was there. I was like, let me go look at this movie. It's a horror movie called Talk to Me. Let me see how it is. And got my absolute socks blown off by how original and interesting and powerful that movie is. It's a very, very punchy, very, very young movie as the best way to describe it. Like it's something full of life and piss and vinegar. Very, very, very heavy movie. So when Bring Her Back came on the scene, I said, say less. Raka Raka, Sally Hawkins, who I love. I go, I'm in. I don't care what it is. Don't show me. I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, Damon. We already know I don't do trailers anymore. I don't read up on nothing. I swipe right past your review of it. Everybody saw Bring Her Back about a week early because it released as a special secret screening on a Monday last week. So, or the week before the release of the film. So everybody was talking about Bring Her Back, and I just had to swipe like a madman. I didn't want to know a thing about it. I don't want to see your Letterboxd ranking, nothing. And partly because of what you're talking about, because I already have this like expectation for the Philippou brothers. I'm already like, yeah, they're fucking very talented guys, interesting storytellers. They're showing me new things. So I don't want to get hyped up about it. I was on my live today on TikTok I got a great group of people on my live that hang out with me, and so many had seen it, and they were like, Bring Her Back. I was like, I don't even want to know if you think it's good. I don't even want to know that. I need to go in as cold as I can to this thing so I can feel it, as objectively as possible. Like the first time I saw Talk to Me, where I was like, whoa, I don't know what this is. I'm glad I did that. I went on once again. I went on a ride with the Raka Raka brothers and saw something not necessarily new. In fact, I think it's almost striking to say like this to me felt much more familiar to horror than Talk to Me did. Talk to Me felt like something fresh and brand new. This felt like something a little more along the lines of a classic sort of psychological or demonic horror or something, however you want to phrase it. I think it's like nuanced. There's a few layers to it, really, about what how this movie is themed. So I was like, oh, they are showing me something different. They're showing me they can kind of go in like from the angle that I'm used to seeing, but they're doing it with that Raka Raka, that Philippou brother style to it. That's undeniable. It's still there. It's still very much a Philippou brother movie, but it's told in a completely different way. Like without giving anything away, Damon, Talk to Me was sort of a sprawling suburban story. Like it felt big. You're at house parties, you're at this party, you're at that party, you're in a car, you're going with this one to this place, you're going to that place, you're going to the freeway, you're going like you're moving, you're in hospitals, you're all over the place. This is an isolated horror. This is something that takes place in a very desolate place, or not desolate, but just a very locked away place with a few characters going through something. And obviously we're not going to get into those spoilers just yet. So they did show me something new. They showed me something smaller, something more intimate. What they brought with them is that Philippou brother brutality that you got from Talk to Me. And in my opinion, Damon, I'm curious what your opinion is, at least on with regards to brutality. I feel like they went up a few notches this time. I think this movie is more brutal than Talk to Me. Your thoughts?
To a certain extent, I would agree. There were parts of me that felt like that it was, and I don't know that this is I don't know that this was them directly addressing it, because if I heard some criticisms of Talk to Me, they said that Talk to Me was original, it was a cool possession film, but it wasn't totally gnarly like a real horror. There's one scene in particular that was really, really brutal, and the rest of the film was more, talking, exposition, and the possession stuff, but not really brutal, not really like a gnarly horror film. And I'm not saying they listened to that criticism. I'm saying the reaction I had to this film was almost like, yeah, they realized we need to stick a little bit more brutality in this movie, and this film is more brutal. They're like, okay, you like that one scene that was brutal and Talk to Me? Here's four more. So that's kind of how it felt like to me. I'm not saying it's bad in that way. I'm just saying like that was my first thought, because of the people who criticized Talk to Me, that was the same talking point. They're like, oh, it wasn't super scary, and it wasn't brutal enough, it wasn't gory enough. And listen, we've had this discussion before. Just like people who love Terrifier, people who hate Terrifier. Not everyone's going to enjoy that kind of film, and that's okay. Just like any other kind of horror film. And you know me, I am all about inclusivity. I like to invite people in. I've said, I bang the drum constantly when people say it's a psychological thriller. I say, yeah, that's also tinged with horror. You bring in the horror folks, more people, more people. Weirdly enough, Bring Her Back, while there is definitely 100% a supernatural element to this film, and we'll get into the nature of that probably a little later, probably more in spoilers because you don't want to give away too much. There is a supernatural element to this film. But I would say about 90% of this movie, 85% of this movie is more of a psychological thriller. Like, I didn't really get a lot of horror. Now, as you said, there are some horrific moments. There's some gnarly horror. But, I mean, there's gnarly horror in Silence of the Lambs. There's gnarly horror in Seven. And I don't know that anyone would say that's a straight-up horror film. That's more of a psychological thriller. And that's fine. Again, inclusivity. Come in. We want you. I welcome in Bring Her Back. I'm just saying, from my perspective, this film was less scary and more disturbing. And that's not to say some people won't be scared by this. I'm just saying, me personally, I didn't feel the horror as much as I felt like this movie is messed up, if that makes sense.
I think I feel exactly the same way. Now, people in my audience were definitely scared shitless. There were certain moments in this movie where people were just like cowering in their seats and jumping. They might have been novices. I don't. It's hard to tell. I should start surveying people as they come out of the theater because I'm genuinely curious. Because you and I, it takes a lot to get us going. Really, it really does. We're highly desensitized. So I just wondered, but like, when the brutal moments hit, I could hear those people groaning, going, "Oh my God, that's a lot. That's a lot." Like they were really like really upset by what they were seeing. And I think you're right, Damon. I think that where this movie lies, I think tonally, is less in the horror realm and more psychologically horrific. The character of the character of Laura, played by the great Sally Hawkins. Is somebody to keep you on your toes. I don't want to say much here, but she's playing games, and those games feel dangerous. Couple that with what I think are very specific visuals that are both brutal and disturbing to I think bring home the theme of loss, trauma, and I think just the absolute terror of loss. Like I don't want to dancing or
grief.
A grief, yes, but also like I've lost a lot of people in my life, Damon, and I know you have as well. Sometimes it gets ugly, and when I mean ugly, I mean like the sight of a dead body isn't always just like someone resting peacefully. There are things you see that you don't want to see. And I think this movie taps into that in a very, very visceral way, where it's just like, yeah, like I got the sense that either Bill Hinzman or Danny or Michael, who Danny and Bill Hinzman wrote this movie. I have a feeling they've been in the presence of a dead body in a way that stuck with them, in a way where they were like, ah, man, I remember seeing so and so dead, and how that made me feel. There's a lot of that in this movie. And I thought about certain people that I would typically invite to horror movies. And I thought to myself, I don't think so-and-so is ready to sit in front of this, because it's disturbing in that respect. It's like, if it's going to bring up things in your, like, actually Gigi said this. I looked up Gigi's Room for Scream, who's been on our podcast, and we love her. I'm going to see her pretty soon here. She said, like, I don't normally tell people, like, hey, watch out. This movie might be a little too much for you, because she watches everything. She was like, this movie might be too much for some of you. And it's because of that. I think it's because of the very realistic depiction of death and the experience of being in the presence of a dead body of a loved one, how that can make you feel. I think this movie taps into it in a very good way.
So I think that if there's one, I know this, I'm not trying to sound patronizing. I'm just being honest. Like, if there's one theme that the Philippou brothers have gotten down pretty pat, is grief and trauma, because
yes,
they do it very well in Talk to Me. Now, I think the difference is, and we only have two films from these guys to compare to, so it's hard not to compare them to a certain extent, because they don't have a bigger catalog. Like, I can talk to you about The Thing by John Carpenter and tell the differences he made when he made Vampires, like 10, 12 years later, whatever it was. So these guys have two films. It's hard not to compare them a little bit. Talk to Me tackled grief and loss in a very real way. In that movie, it was Sophie Wilde's character dealing with the loss of her mother and the trauma that was still affecting her on a daily basis of losing her mother. Now, what I enjoyed about Talk to Me is while there was definitely that theme of loss and grief in there, they also had a little bit of a lightheartedness to that movie. There was a fun. There was a kind of a jovial fun to that movie. Even though it was very dark material and it did get brutal, there was still a little bit of humor, a little bit of joy in that movie, even with interlaced with all the trauma. This movie reminds me, I've talked about this on the show before, of when I read The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which I called the most depressing book ever. Like
one of my favorites.
I read the book and I'm like halfway through, I'm like, I need to take a break for like a week because this is so dour and so depressing that I feel like I'm going to jump off a roof. By the way, I'm not belittling actual mental health issues and suicide. I'm just saying, like, that's how much that book affected me. I was like, God, this has put me in a really dark place. Like, I'm not like I'm waking up in the morning and I'm still thinking about this material. That's
Oh,
not.
I snorted that book up like Robert Downey Jr. in 1987. I love that book.
But it is an incredible book, but it's so dark and
Yeah, it's
so
very
dour and
dour.
so depressing that it's just like I need a break because I'm like, man, this is like bringing my mood down. Like I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be in a bad mood, like because I read the night before, so I took a break. Bring Her Back is 100% an examination of extreme grief, extreme loss, and extreme trauma. And every character in this movie is feeling that. And the plot, the very basics of the plot, without getting, I mentioned in the intro, but if you watch this on YouTube, you don't hear the intro. And this is bare bones. I'm not ruining anything for you. Our two lead characters, Andy and Piper, are step siblings, and they lose their parent, and they are forced to go into the foster care system because Andy is 17, about to turn 18. He's not legally old enough to take care of his younger stepsister, Piper. But Piper is like, I think they don't really mention her age, but I think she's like 13 years old.
Yeah.
So they're going to put Piper into a foster care, and they're going to send Andy to like a group home because he turns 18 in like 3 months. Andy's like, you're not separating us. I'm not leaving my sister. I take care of her. Not happening. And so they find a caregiver by the name of Laura, played by Sally Hawkins. Everyone speaks her praises. She's great. To quote Fargo, she's a super lady. Everyone loves her. And so they bring Andy, and they're nervous about this because Andy's had some problems as a younger kid, and they're like, he's a boy and he's about to turn 18, and so it's kind of an awkward situation, but Laura agrees to take him in because she wants to take care of Piper. And you get there and you find out that Laura is a former social worker in her own right, and she's had loss of her own. Her daughter has passed away. They tell that very early on the story that her daughter passed away. They don't get into a lot of details, but she mentions her daughter. And so Laura is dealing with loss because she lost her daughter, and it makes sense why she would get involved in foster care. She wants to still care for children. She still has love to give. And then you got Piper and Andy who lost their parent, and now they're kind of alone in this world together, but they're looking for, and especially Piper looking for that parental figure. So they go to live with Laura, and that's where shit gets wacky once they get to Laura's house, and you realize there's a lot more going on here than just a foster care system. That's the bare bones. I don't think I've spoiled anything that would ruin the movie for you. This movie this movie is drenched in grief and trauma, and the Philippou brothers really do understand how to bludgeon you over the head with that unrelentingly. And this film, unlike Talk to Me, where there was some levity, there was some joy, there was some jovial moments, there is none of that in this movie. Like, if you sit down and think, oh man, I'm going to have a couple laughs, you're not. I'm going to smile at this movie, you're not. I'm going to walk out feeling better about myself with this movie, I promise you're not. And I'm saying that up front because I want to give people the expectation of what they're walking into. This is a movie drenched in trauma, and you're not going to feel good walking out. Even if you love this movie, you're not going to walk out and be like, man, what a great time at the movies. It's a very dour, very dark film. And the weird thing about, I'll say weird thing, that I think the best way I can describe this movie is it starts dark and it ends fucking bleak. That's what I can say.
There's a tinge of hope. We'll get into that in spoilers. Just a tinge, but yeah, it's pretty dark. Damon, when we talked about the Philippou brothers and Talk to Me, we talked about the approach that millennials were taking towards horror, which to me is fascinating. In fact, a few weeks back, we talked about Gen Z with Hell of a Summer, taking their crack at horror, and it felt very childish and playful and goofy, and they were kind of having fun with it. Talk to Me felt like that as well. You were like, look at how the millennials play with possession. It felt like nothing before. Gen Xers and boomers and the silent generation before them who made horror movies, they handled possession a completely different way. And it was so exciting to see millennials handle possession their way. And it was so unique and so different, and I'm way into it. When it came to this movie, and you are right, this movie is very much about trauma. And by the way, just a blanket statement, a lot of people are getting tired of trauma movies. I still think this one's interesting and unique, and I think it's interesting and unique because it takes the millennials like perspective on trauma. And if you think about how old the Philippou brothers are, and I'm guessing they're very early 30s. When you are in your early 30s, I don't know about you, Damon, I was still processing a lot of the trauma that I had dealt with from a very young age. And I was not like, I didn't have a professional helping me out, and I certainly didn't have a budget of a movie to like work it out in a very gross and disgusting and dour and heavy way. I see the Philippou brothers working through it in the millennial way, which is there's a lot of anger and a lot of pain. So when you're young and you suffer a lot of pain, usually you react in a couple of different ways, and one of them is anger. The brutality of this movie, to me, is anger coming out. They're angry for the things that they had to see, they had to endure, or the things that their friend, however they built this movie, I don't know. But what they're doing is they're processing it at that specific age where you go, I lost so and so, and I'm just fucking pissed. I'm pissed I had to see them that way. I'm pissed I had to be there with them that way. I'm pissed about how their mom reacted about it, or how my mom reacted about it. What, you know, like all these interactions in this movie absolutely to me feel like you're getting the visceral feeling of what it was like to go through those things in the moment, and you haven't worked through them yet. I'm very curious what Danny and Michael feel about this movie when they're like 45 years old. Like I would love to sit down with them when they're 45 and I'm 900 and just go, hey, Danny, Michael, like looking back on this movie, where were you at in your head when you made it? Because it's angry. Because the things you see in it are ugly. The things you see in it are vicious. Really. They really remind me of what I was going through, which I think taps into something like that. I really appreciated that about this movie. I was like, yeah, that was my angry era. I remember that. I remember being angry like that.
I understand that, absolutely understand that. And processing is a weird thing because people process grief and loss in many different ways. Some people lash out angrily, some people go inwardly. I, like you, dealt with a lot of trauma early in my life and loss. And I think, honestly, like, I don't know that I've ever truly dealt with it as well as I should have because a lot of it just got, we're unfortunately, I think a lot of us as guys, men, we tamp it down and just like, we got to get through it. We got to gut through it because we're men and it's really a dumb approach to have to life. And I think the other side was when I went to college, I did a couple, I was a English lit major, but I was a psychology minor, and I took several quarters. I was deep into a psychology degree before I decided I could only do one degree. So that also, in a weird way, helped me process my own trauma was through reading and actually having a psychology professor for 2 or 3 years. Sounds bizarre, but that was my own way of working through it. So I agree. And I agree with you. I'd like to see how they approach this now versus how they feel about it a decade from now, because I don't know what they were processing when they wrote this and made this. One other thing I want to mention before we get to spoilers, and I'm going to call this kind of a trigger warning, I guess, and maybe you'll disagree with me. I think of a movie that is a great movie, by the way, called The Green Mile. Mm. And Michael Clark Duncan, Tom Hanks, based on a Stephen King book, and I think it was Frank Darabont who directed that, if I'm not mistaken. Or if it was, I know he did.
Yeah, it was Darabont.
Yeah, okay, it was Darabont. I saw that movie in the theater. It's a great movie. Yeah, but there's so much relentless cruelty in that movie that I never want to see it again. Like it, I'm not gonna lie. There was a moment when I cried in that movie where I was like, "This is so fucked up. I can't this. I couldn't handle it." There is a level of cruelty in this movie that's hard to stomach. And if you are, just like anything else, when you talk about trigger warnings, there are kids involved in this movie, and teenagers too. It's not just one kid or anything. There's kids. Yeah. Let's just say kids. and there's adults, and there's a cruelty towards children in this movie. And when I say children, by the way, I'm not specifically saying children. I'm saying anyone under the age of 18.
Right.
There's a cruelty to children in this movie that is going to be off-putting for some people. I had read a review because I'm like you. I did see the trailer, but that's literally it. I didn't do any other research. And by the way, I only saw the teaser. I never actually saw the trailer.
I only ever saw the teaser. Yeah,
I saw the teaser. I never watched the trailer. There was a trailer. I didn't watch it. I did watch the teaser, which really told you nothing about this movie. So I didn't know hardly anything about this. And then I got home. I had about 40 minutes between watching the movie and recording our podcast for about an hour, and I just dove in. I dove into interviews with the Philippou brothers, and I dove into reviews. And there was one review in particular that struck out to me, and it said that they didn't particularly like this movie because it feels like the Philippou brothers just love to be mean to children. And they reference Talk to Me, and then they reference this movie. And I was like, I mean, you could look at, I say this all the time. Even if I don't like a movie, we always tell people, go out and watch and judge for yourself. Like, just because we don't like it doesn't mean you won't like it. And that reviewer who said it feels like they're cruel to children, that's how they feel. They're allowed to feel that way. They absolutely. But I will say that there is I think far more than Talk to Me and Bring Her Back.
Far more.
There is a much deeper level of cruelty. And I'll be honest, like, It did affect me a little bit. It did kind of make me it did turn me off a little bit in this movie because there's just that relentless cruelty towards children. I don't love it. And unlike The Green Mile, which is a film I really did enjoy but I never want to see again, I could see myself watching Bring Her Back again, but just putting it out there before we get to spoilers, because I don't want people to go away from the non-spoiler section saying, did you like it or not like it? I'll be honest, Patrick, I didn't particularly love this movie. There were elements I loved, and as I said earlier, the grief and trauma, they got that down, man. They can hammer that. Oh. They know how to do that, and they do it very well. Like, they understand that. But then beyond that, the actual story and the actual execution in this movie, A, kind of confused me, B, didn't really pay off for me, and in the end, it just felt like trauma candy in a lot of ways to me at the end of this movie. It's almost like they're at Halloween handing out trauma. Like, here you go. Here's some more candy for you. And so I didn't love it. I was honestly disappointed when I walked out of the theater. I was like, yeah, I wanted to love it. I did. But I sat down, I was like, it's not terrible. I'm not going to sit there and lie to you and say it's a terrible film. It's a well-made film. It's a well-acted film. But when it was over, I was just like, yeah, it just didn't really work for me in that way. It was kind of disappointing. And if you are into grief and trauma and you love that, man, that you're probably going to really enjoy this. If you can get down and deep and dark and you like that kind of stuff, that's fine. And to be honest, I like films about that. I'm not.
I do too.
I know you said there's a little bit of burnout for trauma films and grief films and horror. There is. I'll be honest. I've heard it too. It hasn't really affected me though. I'm not really on that boat. I'm not sitting on that boat saying too much of this. But I will say this film is so overtly traumatic and grief-stricken and like bludgeoning you over the head with a sledgehammer, and then you dash in that level of cruelty, and it just didn't work for me. Just didn't work for me, Patrick.
That's fair enough. I will say, with regards to the cruelty towards people under the age of 18, there is a whole slew of people in horror that go, you don't cross that line. I know people like that. They're like, you absolutely don't. Damon, I cross the line. I do. I'm a habitual line crosser personally.
And I do. And by the way, I do too in the right circumstances.
No, I know you do. Yeah. I'm just saying from my side of things, I'm okay crossing that line. I'm okay. Like, part of me is like, like, okay, here's my example of a movie that I will probably never watch again. Irreversible. There's a scene in Irreversible with Monica Bellucci that she directed, that particular scene in the movie, which is absolutely horrific. I don't ever need to watch that movie again. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did at the age that I did. It made me think about that type of abuse in a way that I'd never thought about it, because I'd never seen it portrayed in such an ugly and cruel manner. When I saw that, it literally changed how I felt about the subject Not that I was like a big fan of it. It just made me realize this ain't funny. It'll never be funny. And it's endlessly cruel and ugly. And you need to see it sometimes. That's my personal opinion. If you're like, no, I don't, you don't have to. And I also have kids. I have kids, and there are kids about the age of my kids suffering things in this movie that I would never want to see happen to my children. Period. But to see them for me is like it's part of that education of like you do need to see the cruelty sometimes, or at least I do. You need to feel it viscerally somehow to shake it in your bones and realize this is something that is serious, right? But a lot of the time, Damon, let's be honest, a lot of people are like, hey, I don't want to be serious. I don't go to the movies to be serious. I'm not into the movies to be serious. So for a lot of those people, it's not going to work solely on that. For me, it did. I believe, it sounds weird to say that. I believe in cruelty. Like I believe in examining it is what I mean. I believe in examining cruelty because I think it changes us for the better. Hopefully, boy, if it doesn't, please seek help if it doesn't change your mind on cruelty, or if it doesn't rock you in that way as it should. And then on the second part of that is I did enjoy this movie. It's an early contender for the top 5 this year. I'm going to say that right now. Damon didn't like it. Let's get into spoilers and work all that shit out, Damon. Let's go sit on the couch and talk to Dr. Feelings.
Yes, let's do that. So yes, Bring Her Back is in theaters right now. Go check it out. And by the way, when I say I was disappointed, there are still elements of this movie I did enjoy. There's a lot of it I didn't enjoy, and we'll get into more about why that is in spoilers, because there's just some things I can't say without getting into spoilers.
Totally, yeah.
And with that being said, we're not going to get into spoilers. Also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, even if you skipped earlier, I'm mentioning it again now, we are launching a Patreon page July 11th. Stay tuned for more details. You are going to get some really cool stuff. And as I always say, just as a forewarning, the actual podcast still going to be free, still going to be available everywhere. You're not going to pay for the actual podcast. But if you support us on Patreon, you're going to get extra cool shit. And that's what we're going to have our Patreon for. It's separate from the actual, not separate from the podcast. It's still Rewind of Living Dead, but we're not going to make you pay for what you get on a weekly basis. You are still going to get full access to this with no extra cost. But we're going to have some cool extra shit on our Patreon. So stay tuned for more details about that coming July 11th. Be there to support us. With that being said, Patrick, let's get into spoilers. And do you want to just rail out the plot real quick before we get into like the whole detail we're getting into here?
Basically, when Andy and Piper land at Lauren's house, you get the feeling right away something is off. Something is strange about Lauren. I don't know what it is. The house is circled in salt. Geez, I wonder what that's all about, Damon. She is a gaslighter, a manipulator right away. Like right away, she's trying to position Andy as like someone who needs to go away, and she's really trying to bring Piper in. Like you feel it really hard. I think of Ann Dowd's character in Hereditary. Like she's up to something right away. You can feel it. And what you learn pretty quickly, and really without any sort of hiding, Damon. And I bet this gets to the root a little bit of what you kind of weren't into about this movie, is you realize that on the sly, Lauren is trying to bring her dead daughter back from the dead. And the question that I think is on our minds during the movie is, what do Andy and Piper have to do with that? And Damon, I think what they're saying in this movie is that Lauren is summoning the powers of a demon to resurrect her daughter, and she needs a host for her daughter's soul. And she brings up these things like at their dad's funeral. She's like, the soul can stay in the body for at least a few months, even. Like you need to respect all of that, and you need to respect these processes. And then she goes and she watches these little tapes in secret in her room, and they're just glimpses of what look like absolutely horrific and demonic rituals with normal human beings. Like they're doing something to bring people back from the dead, and she's trying to follow those steps, and you get the feeling that she's actually not very good at following these steps, or she's kind of fumbling through it because she's dealing with a tremendous amount of loss. And then there's this other kid in the house by the name of Ollie. Ollie don't look right. And I was like, I think Ollie's not real. Like, I think Ollie's back from the dead. I'm like, we're in some Pet Cemetery shit. Like, something's going on here with him. And Damon, I'm going to tell you this right now. This movie does not subvert your expectations. What you think is happening in this movie. She has targeted Piper, who, by the way, what they don't, what I don't know if the trailer says it or not. Piper is visually impaired. Piper basically says she can only see light and shapes at this point in her life, and she's pretty young too. So she's going to be blind in a few years. So Laura has chosen Piper because Piper can't see what she's up to, and she needs Andy.
And she mentions that her daughter Kathy was also visually impaired, so it's the closest facsimile to her own daughter in Piper.
She's looking for this host that very much will embody her late daughter Kathy, but Andy's in the way of that. So a lot of the movie is Laura gaslighting Andy into becoming public enemy number one in this house. She tries whatever she can to make him look like the bad guy, to make, again, you mentioned in the pre-spoilers, he's got a bit of a past because he had bad behavior, and then you learn why that bad behavior came around, all to basically recreate the ritual, which requires Piper to drown the way Kathy drowned. And then this demon, which is in the body of Ollie, will put Kathy's soul into Piper's body. And so it's really a race for Andy to stop that from happening. That's basically what the movie is.
But and this is where my confusion starts, because you learn that Ollie is actually a kidnapped boy named Connor, and they mention when Andy finally realizes there's some weird shit going on, he needs help. He goes back to the social worker and he's like, "Hey, like, Laura's not right in the head. She's got some shit going on. She's got another kid there." And like, they don't mention that when they move in. They're just like, "You are going to live with the foster mom."
Yeah, she's hidden this kid. Nobody knows that she has the kid.
And it's only when they get there, they're like, "Oh, this is your new brother, Ollie." And Ollie's clearly not all the way there. He goes back and says, "We got this kid brother, Ollie." And she's like, "Ollie? Who's Ollie?" "Ollie's her nephew that died. Who's Ollie?" And he's like, "What?" And so it's confusing because you find out that Ollie is actually a kidnapped boy named Connor, but the social worker mentions that Ollie is Laura's dead nephew. So it's like she brought Ollie back from the dead as a demon to possess this boy Connor. It's really weird. Like, it almost got to the point where I'm just like, why not just call him Connor and just have him be possessed by a demon? Like, it was just really confusing because when he says Ollie to the social worker, she's like, "Oh, that's her nephew." It was just a weird, like, I almost felt like an extra layer they didn't need there. Like, why do we have this nephew all of a sudden? Like, I don't know what the conduit is. And here, let me just throw it out there right now.
Yes, please.
This is me. Please call me stupid. I'm fine with you calling me dumb.
I would never.
One thing I loved about Talk to Me was when you talk about the hand. I'm not going to spoil the movie because people, there's people out there who haven't seen Talk to Me. But in the very base of Talk to Me is there's a hand that you touch, and it allows you to see, allows you to connect with a dead person, more or less. That's the easiest way I can explain it. Now, in the movie, they kind of jokingly say where this hand came from, but you never really know where the hand came from. But you know how the hand works. They explain that word, and it's visceral in the movie. You know that when you touch the hand, you say, "Talk to me," some shit happens. That's very plainly explained. They don't tell where it came from, and they don't need to tell you where it came from, right? The problem I had with Bring Her Back is that they show you these snippets of this videotape showing this ritual. And there's actually one part where they go as far as actually putting little mini subtitles like, "Kill this person, they have to die in the same manner as the other person, and then the body imbibes the soul," or whatever. So they kind of give you a step-by-step. It's real quick. It's not, it's very brief. I would say this whole scene where they show you that lasts maybe 30 seconds, not even. I don't need you to walk me through this ceremony, this ritual. But you're telling me there is this ritual that's going to bring her daughter back from the dead. And they so loosely connect the threads of that ritual to what's actually happening in the movie, that there were moments where I'm just like, I don't even need the ritual. Like, make it, like, I almost feel like it would have been better off just making Laura be a crazy lady who thinks you could bring her daughter back from the dead. The fact that they interlace it with this videotape, it's like watching The Ring, but you never actually know what is going on in the video. Like, you never figure out who the fuck Samara is. Like, what? That would, I'm not saying it would ruin The Ring, but I'm saying you'd be kind of confused or kind of pissed off if you went through this entire thing about a videotape that you watch and 7 days later you die, and they never told you what the videotape was. There's a little bit of that element in here where it's like, I kind of understand it's a ritual. It's some sort of demonic ritual. I get that. But they never actually tell you what it is or where you're going or how she did it. There's a really bizarre scene where Ollie's going freaking out outside. She draws a ring of blood around a window and it calms him down. They never explain why the fuck that works or how that works or what purpose that served. And I think the Ollie element of it was what confused me the most, because when they say that it's Ollie, who is her dead nephew, and this kid Connor, who she apparently kidnapped, and then it's a demon, it's a really, really confusing, convoluted story in that regard. And it just left me with more questions than answers with the ritual part of it. Again, as I said, I don't need to know where the videotape came from. You don't need to explain its origin story. You don't need to tell me who the people are in the video. That's all fine. But at least explain to me, or at least show me what the fuck it is happening, and they never do. It's like the videotape. It's like the videotape is almost coincidental. Like, it's just kind of there. And I guarantee you, there are going to be people who are going to listen to this review and say you didn't get the point. It's not about the videotape. It's about the grief and the trauma. I understand it's about the grief and the trauma, but if you're going to inject this element, this MacGuffin, which for people who don't know what a MacGuffin is a object in a movie that is kind of like the center of the attention of the movie. And in the Avengers movie, it's the Infinity Gauntlet. That's the MacGuffin. Everyone wants the MacGuffin. In Indiana Jones, it's the Ark of the Covenant. It's the last cup of Christ. It's the cup of Christ. That's the MacGuffin. The MacGuffin in this movie is the videotape of her showing this ritual to bring people back, but they never explain anything. Like, you never understand the ritual. You don't really know what she's doing. And that bugged me, because I'm like, okay, so you're telling me she's conducting this ritual to bring her daughter back, but it's so confusing. I don't know what the fuck she's actually doing to bring her daughter back.
Damon, you're stupid and you didn't understand. No, I'm kidding. That's what everyone's expecting. No, Damon. I have a theory, interestingly enough, and it's purely a theory. I think the videotape was never part of the script. I think the producers said, you've got to somehow show people what she's doing. Because, interestingly enough, pretty much everything you see in the videotape, Ollie does in some way, shape, or form. Ollie and Lauren both. They're in the videotape. There's this demon that's like devouring things. Basically, it's like eating flesh and eating stuff, and then you see people resurrect and all that stuff. And then that stuff happens in the actual movie. I think what happened is they shot the movie, or they wrote it. I don't know at what point this happened, and someone said, like, you need to explain that it's a ritual. I think, crazy, call me crazy, Damon, just take the videotapes out. Take the videotapes out. I understood that Laura was doing a ritual. Maybe I just have a little bit more base knowledge of the occult than the average person. But I knew when they drove up to the house and there was a salt circle around, I go, she's either keeping in a demon or keeping one out. What's it going to be? And then there's a moment in the movie, completely aside from the videotapes, where Andy takes Ollie across the salt line, and I mean, he starts to like boil and writhe, and you're like, he can't cross the salt line. He's a demon. Just because I happen to know this shit about the occult.
No, and I knew that too. I knew that part too. Like the salt line, that part I got. But I don't want to cut you off. I just want to say this. Like, it felt like when we got to Laura's house, we were already halfway through the ritual. And I think that's the problem, because Ollie was already possessed and Ollie was already, but So
So
they're telling us that Ollie was already the conduit, the demon or whatever. But so they're just saying she was just like hanging out with Ollie, like we're just waiting until we get a kid here to possess you with my dead daughter. Like she's just hoping that
here's
some
how
kid
I
comes
look
and
at it.
lives with it.
Here's how I look at it. No, I think she was definitely looking for that kid. She had. Oh, here's another part of the movie that I don't want to tell the whole movie. She's keeping her late daughter Kathy on ice. She's keeping the body on ice. So what I surmised from that was she's keeping her on ice until she finds the proper host. In the meantime, she resurrected Ollie as a test trial. What she learned in that test trial is that you're resurrecting Ollie, sure, but eventually the demon consumes the body. And boy, Ollie goes through a very disgusting transformation in this movie, where he really just starts to look like a bloated corpse. He really and he's like he's ravenous for flesh and wood and sand and dirt. Like he's just this ravenous demon, and you realize, oh, during this process, she got Ollie back, and then eventually the demon just takes over. And so she's like, okay, whatever. I just need this demon to bring my sweet little Kathy back, even though she knows, and this is how far gone Laura is. She knows that eventually she'll get Kathy back because she did the ritual with Ollie. She's going to get Kathy back, but when she gets her back, eventually the demon's going to take control again. It's a vicious, disgusting cycle that she's willing to go through to get her daughter back, even if it's just for a time. That's how I saw it. I saw the videotapes as a way to over explain it. And by the way, I like the videotapes. They're creepy. They look weird. You know, they're like weird, like bad VHS. And so it really makes you feel like you're seeing something you're not supposed to be seeing. Like I like the effect of it very much so. But to me, it felt like a redundancy that somebody somewhere in the process of putting the story together said, we need to explain that she's doing a ritual. I'm like, bro, I know she's doing a ritual. I can see it. It's like clear as day to me that she's on a ritual. I'm one of these people. I'm like, I could do with less. You can show me less. You can explain less to me and let me fill in the gaps. It's more exciting that way. That's my opinion. That's how I feel about it. I don't want to know more. Some people want to know more. Some people people have said to me they didn't like The Road because they don't know why the world is the way it is. I go, that's not the point of The Road. Like you've missed the point if you're trying to figure that out. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just saying some people really, really want to know the thing. I want to know less. I'm seeing her actions. Her actions tell me she's up to something. And what she's doing, interacting with Ollie and all that, I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. And sure enough, like this movie, like I said, it just puts one foot in front of the other, does not subvert anything. What I think she's up to, she's up to. And really it's just about stopping her from doing it. And that's where the tension of the movie comes from, because you really want Andy to save his sweet sister. Piper is this sweet girl. You don't want her to go through what she's going to go through, and she's going through hell to get to that point. You want him to stop it. And that, to me, that's really what the movie's about. I didn't need all that other explanation.
And see, even to your point, and if you're right, and I'm not saying you're wrong, you absolutely may be right.
And I'm just guessing, by the way.
With the Ollie thing, like she experimented to bring Ollie back and used Connor to do it. Okay, I can jive with that. And then the demon takes over the body. But I never got the feeling that she was bringing her daughter back, knowing the demon was going to take over. Like I guess that's just like the subversion of. You get to understand that because of what happened to Ollie, but it's almost like she doesn't expect that to happen because when she's obsessed with bringing her daughter back.
Oh yeah, she's delusional about it.
I just
that's how I mean that's how I interpret it. Is my point? Right. I interpret it as her being delusional about the idea. Like I just need her back because clearly at one point Ollie was okay. They even talk about it. Like like recently he stopped talking. He stopped talking because the demon probably like ate his vocal cords. You know what I mean? Like they kind of like that's what's going on in my head anyway.
Yeah. And then in the movie, like, you know, Ollie gets outside the circle and he wakes up and he's Connor again. Because when the police find him at the end of the movie, they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "My name's Connor." And they're like, "Oh, okay, so you're back." It was just there was a lot of like
that helped me. That really helped me. I'll just say that. Like, when I realized that when he got past the circle, it killed the demon. It killed the demon that was taking over his body.
But he
She
went
was
out, but
making a deal with the devil to try and get her daughter back, but she was never going to get her back.
yeah, it just, like I said, it was just a lot of mechanisms to try to make it. It felt like a puzzle, and they were trying to shoehorn in pieces to make it fit and work. And where you say I didn't need the videotape to explain it, the problem is they did introduce a videotape. And when you introduce that videotape, you're telling me that this is the methodology of which she's going to bring her daughter back to life. Okay, great. And that's fine. You don't need to tell me where she got the videotape from. She didn't go down to, to raise a cult down at the Ghostbuster store and rent it from there. I don't need to know that. But at least if you're going to show me this videotape, I at least need to know what it is. And I understand you're going to say, yeah, it is what it is.
It's a ritual.
It is. But it's so like the way she's watching it obsessively, you're like, okay, what is this? And as I said, there's that one brief moment where they show you the subtitles and you kind of get what it's supposed to be. But even that, then like Ollie goes and feasts on her daughter's dead body, and then she like one of the creepiest moments of the movie, which is the moment where I was like, this is like, once again the cruelty and just unrelenting evilness towards children, was that she's like holding on the Piper and she's like, okay, now honey, I'm going to go drown you in the pool now. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, she's basically saying, you got to die in the same method as the person who died to bring them back. I think almost in a weird way, your version without the videotape of her just being a delusional fucking lunatic and almost not even having the Ollie character in there, like her just being delusional to the fact that she thinks she can possess this child's soul with her dead daughter, that would have worked. Like, that simple basicness of that would have worked. But then you introduce the Ollie character, and there's a demon, and there's this ritual, and there's this videotape. It's almost like they went too far. But if you're going to introduce all that, to me, you got to give me the answers. And I never really felt like I got the answers. And the reason, like, I know maybe I'm thinking too deeply into it, but when I walked out, my girlfriend was just like, so what the fuck was the point of the ritual? Like, what? I don't, like, it didn't make any sense. And I was like, I don't know. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me either. So that's my problem. Like, it's just, it was a lot of thread connecting, a lot of things that just didn't fit. And it just, when it was over, I was kind of like, I get the point of it. I understand what the story was. I understand what you were going for. It's extreme. What will a person do in the face of extreme loss? And in Laura's case, she will kidnap a kid. She will, by the end of the movie, she's rolled over one other kid. She's rolled over a social worker. She's ready to murder a child to bring back her dead daughter. That's how much loss and trauma has affected Laura. I understand that's the point of the movie. That's how deeply loss and grief can affect a person. That's the theme. I get all that. But then they introduce all these other elements that either felt, as you said, unnecessary, like the videotape, or you got to tell me where it's coming from. Like, you got to tell me what show me the ritual one time so I know what you're doing. And then the Ollie, it was just a lot. It was just a lot that just didn't make sense to me.
I think, just from my perspective, it doesn't have to make sense to you. To me, the interaction with Ollie told me everything I needed to know. I knew Laura was doing a ritual. I knew the ritual worked on Ollie. I didn't know the consequences of what it was going to do to Ollie until near the end, as he started to degrade and really become a demon. I mean, God, literally, when I say demon, he started to look like the demon from Demons. Like, literally, he was turning into a demon, and he was trapped in this salt circle with them because she needed to trap the entity that can. This is all the stuff I'm gathering from what I'm watching, right? I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to work. Got it. And then I learn, okay, like, she's going to do the ritual again because she knows it works now. She's going to do it again to resurrect her daughter. What she was waiting for was a girl about her daughter's age. Like, and she went into great detail to talk about how Kathy looked, what her hair color was, what she was like, all that. She was looking for the perfect version of Kathy to come back, the perfect host. And she found it in Piper. So she's going to do everything she can to get that. She gets her into it. She drowns her. She comes out of the water. She's like, "Mommy, like it works, but only for a split second." And then she escapes. She gets out of the salt circle, and the demon can't survive in her body because we've established that he can't survive outside the circle. To me, Damon, just to me, it was all there. I liked the tapes for the creepiness of it. Like clearly, this is like that's where she learned the ritual from. I didn't need the tapes. My point is the tapes were redundant. I was understanding everything that was going on just with her and Ollie. I could pick it all up. And again, I didn't need like the why of it all. I'm like, she's doing a ritual and it worked on this kid. And so she's just trying to find the right host to make it happen for her daughter. It to me, it all made sense.
Yeah, and I like when you're saying it's not that it doesn't. It's not that it didn't make sense in that regard. I knew the end goal of what she was going for. She was trying to resurrect her daughter. That I understood. It's just the methodology of how they got there. Like I understood how we got from point A to point Z. There's just a lot of mixed up letters in the middle that I was just like, oh, hold on, we're going from A to G to X to back to Y and D and like what direction are we going here? And the theme of the movie I understood. It's loss and trauma. I get all that, and I think I won't say confusion. The muddiness of the storytelling with the resurrection, with the ritual, was one part that I didn't love because it was just kind of confusing. It didn't make a lot of sense. And as I said, there's going to be people who say that's not really the point. I understand you're going to say that.
Or there's going to be people like me who say it did make sense, just for parity's sake.
But then when you tack on the relentless cruelty towards children, like there's a scene in this movie where she's trying to frame Andy for hitting his sister. And you learn throughout the movie that when Andy was a kid, he lived with his dad, and his dad got remarried to Piper's mom. And when they got remarried, Andy's father was cruel to him. He never touched Piper, never was cruel to her, never was mean to her, never hit her, but he used to beat the living shit out of Andy. And when Andy was 8 years old, and so the way they're saying they're like 6 years apart, I guess, because she's like 12, he's like 17, she's like 12, so like 5 years apart. When he was 8 years old, and they actually say specifically when he was 8 years old, he hit his sister and hurt her. And that's like an overarching theme early in the movie is like, we know you did bad things, 8 years old. It seems kind of weird to hold that against an 8-year-old kid, but neither here nor there. And so at one point, Laura goes into Piper's bedroom and she sprays herself down with the body deodorant that Andy wears to like make it smell, because that's what Piper would pick up on is the smell. And she goes into Piper's room and she literally punches this poor girl in the fucking face. And she wakes up crying and screaming, and she frames Andy for doing it. She's trying to get Andy out of the house. Now, I understand why they do that. I understand you're trying to get Andy out. There's some really weird shit where she pours piss on him to make it look like he's peeing himself. And like, she's just trying to get rid of Andy. We understand that. But like that scene in and of itself, it felt, you know what it felt like to me? Have you seen the movie The Hand That Rocks the Cradle?
Yes.
You know, there's like those moments in the movie where Rebecca De Mornay's character is just relentlessly cruel to Ernie Hudson's character. Ernie is like the caretaker, sweet, you know, whatever, and she's just, I mean, it's just viciously cruel to this poor guy. Frames him for being a pedophile, all this shit. That's what it reminded me of. I was like, God, like I get what you're going for, but Jesus Christ, like, you know, like let's like take the foot off the gas a little bit. That scene bugged me because like when she just fucking punches that poor girl in the face, and it's just like all of that on top of the confusion of just like the story that didn't make sense. It just, for me, it just didn't work, man. It was a lot of cruelty and a lot of weird storytelling decisions that just didn't work for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, it did not confuse me. It was a cruel movie. It is a very cruel movie, and I think a lot of people are going to be upset by the cruelty displayed in this movie. I do. I think a lot of people are going to be very turned off by it. But again, what I was saying earlier was like, you know, to me, it's that's what a young reaction to cruelty looks like. It's angry. It's ugly because they're still seeing it in that light. They don't have the age that they've allowed to like process it out, and that's what they're putting on film. I think about, remember that movie? Oh Oh my God, why can't I think of it? It's about those guys who do a bank heist and they came out of the Vietnam War. You know what I'm talking about? The Fuqua brother.
Dead
Dead
presidents.
Presidents. Dead
Yeah.
Presidents. Thank you very much. Dead Presidents portrays the Vietnam War like a horror movie. They don't portray it any like it literally comes like a horror movie because they're young guys. They haven't processed it. So they just process the horror. They go, look at the cruelty, look at the horror, look at how disgusting it is. It's angry. It's an angry way to tell the story. That's going to turn people off. There's no denying that at all. I'm just looking at it like, okay, that's where you're coming from. You're coming from an angry place. I would love to talk to the Philippou brothers about the cruelty on display in this movie and where their heads at about it. I can only surmise right now. I'd love to get them on the show, and believe me, if they want to come back on the show, they have carte blanche. They can come on anytime they want, and that would be probably my first question: is explain the cruelty in this movie because it's a very cruel movie.
Yeah, and it's just this is the factors, and when you say the ritual, like I get what the ritual is. I get what the ritual was. I don't want people saying, "Oh, you don't understand the ritual." I understand what she's trying to do. I understand the end result of what she's trying to do. It's the steps to get there that were just kind of confusing and convoluted and didn't make a lot of sense. And listen, we may talk to the Philippine brothers and they say that's kind of the point. We weren't really trying to explain the ritual. We were
That's
just
kind of how I
point.
saw it. Yeah,
And,
like it's not about what the ritual is. It's like I know what the ritual's trying to achieve. It's trying to achieve her coming back.
And to your point, maybe that would have fixed the movie. Just remove the videotape and don't even have that in there. Like maybe that would have made more sense. It's just when you introduce, like as I said, like with the talk to me thing, it's like if you introduce the hand, I got to know what the hand does. Right? You've introduced these videotapes. You've introduced this ritual. Give me something to know exactly what you're doing. I almost agree with you in that sense. Like, just remove it. Just let me know that you're.
I didn't need them. Yeah,
and I also think like even the supernatural element, while yes, that kind of adds a layer of horror. I get all that, but really, even that didn't need to even be in there. This lady just could have been absolutely batshit crazy, and that could have been the scariest part of this movie, that Laura thinks she's going to bring her daughter back from the dead, but we all know, watching as the audience, like, no, she's not bringing anybody back. She's just a batshit fucking crazy lady. That's
another. You could have played that way too. You could have. Yeah. You really could have. I like the supernatural element. It's just interesting. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I'm just saying, like, they could have done that even, and it would have just been like, wow, this lady is just, it's like watching Misery and seeing Kathy Bates, like, she's so attached to James Caan's character, thinking that, like, they're attached and she's so, like, married to these characters. Really, we just know that Kathy Bates is a fucking loon. And so that's almost like, I kind of feel like that it went one way or the other. So yeah, that's just, I want to be clear that I don't want to say I didn't hate this movie. I really didn't. It was just the elements that I didn't like that kind of dragged it down for me.
No, that's fair. I mean, it's totally fair. Like I could have used, I like the videotapes. I didn't need them. I guess that's my point. That is my whole point with the videotapes is I didn't need them to understand what was going on. They felt like a redundancy to me, but they were creepy. And I like that. And like for a movie that's really just sort of about some nuts and bolts, like meat and potatoes, abuse and trauma and loss, it was nice to have the supernatural elements just to go, ooh, what's that tasty little thing over there? I'll never really know, but like just for me, just personal taste, that stuff attracts me. When I'm like, you give me a tiny window into some other world, I'll go, what the fuck was going, like in The Shining, when he walks by the door and the guy's in the teddy bear suit, you're like, what's going on in there? Like, what the fuck was going on in there? You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I like that I got just a little window into that creepy stuff. That's just another little element that just tickles my fancy.
I know that the Philippine brothers have said they had this script already in the works, like before Talk to Me. Like they had already started kind of working on this script, and when Talk to Me was done, they were going to go into Street Fighter. That didn't happen. They ended up dropping off that project, and they signed on to do Talk to Me too. And then they're like, hey, we have this other idea we've wanted to work on for a while. We want to do this movie. And the financiers were like, no, we want Talk to Me. A24 was like, come on, guys, we'll support you because we want to support our filmmakers. Credit to A24.
Yes.
I wonder, and this is just me spitballing here. I wonder if because Talk to Me was such a success with the supernatural element of possession and demons, and we praised that movie left, right, and center about how original it was with possession. I wonder if maybe there's a version of this movie that wasn't even supernatural. Like they're just like, this is a movie about grief and trauma and loss, and they're like, well, hold on now, like you said, the videotapes. Like someone's like, hold on now. You're the Philippe brothers. You're the Talk to Me guys. You got to inject some supernatural shit. I'm just throwing out ideas. Like I wonder if maybe there was a version where this is just like this was just a straight up fucked up psychological thriller. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I could be completely wrong.
I would love to talk to them. I want to talk to them. Hey, Philippe brothers. I know they're big fans of the show. Come on the show and talk to us about it. Let's have a full...
They might not be after listening to this episode. Like, fuck Damon, fuck that guy.
Yeah, no, I would love to pick their brain about how they constructed the idea itself. There a lot about it. A lot about the movie fascinates me.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, let's get into some categories. We do have quite a few to get through today, so let's kick things off as we do every week with best performance. And I will say one of the strongest things about this movie are the performances. I will say I did read early on that that Billy Barrett, who plays Andy, was actually originally going to get a part in Talk to Me, and he did end up doing the part, and that's the one that went to the little brother in the movie.
Oh yeah. I forget it. I talked to that guy. He's a great guy, Riley.
Yeah. Riley. He was going to play Riley and Talk to Me. He didn't end up doing it, and so they brought him back and did bring her back with him. So just to throw that out there as a little side note. So Patrick, when it came to best performance and Bring Her Back, who gets your best performance?
This, unlike last week with Fear Street Prom Queen, there was a embarrassment of riches for performances. I didn't know where to go. Every moment I was like, oh, it's this one. Oh, it's that one. Oh, it's this one. It's that one. And I finally landed on Sally Hawkins, who plays Laura. Laura, first of all, very devious character. You mentioned Kathy Bates in Misery. There are moments in this movie where she is under your skin with her evilness, with her psychosis, and again, she is being cruel to children. So, like, trust me, you don't like this woman. But there was a moment in this movie that absolutely fucking ripped my heart out, Damon, and it's early on when she's sitting and talking with Andy about loss, and they're combative to begin with, but she's a psychologist, so she's playing a psychology game with him. She's like, let's just sit back to back so we don't have to face each other and just talk about loss and grief. And then she talks about losing Kathy, and she talks about how she couldn't leave the gravesite, and how she'd sit there for days. She wouldn't eat, she wouldn't drink, because she couldn't stomach the idea of leaving her daughter. She's like, I'm not going to leave my daughter. Sally Hawkins, who, by the way, I think was nominated for an Oscar. I don't know if she won it.
Two-time Oscar nominee. Two-time
Oscar nominee. This is a heavyweight actor, a very, very good actor. I was ripped to shreds in that moment. Absolutely. And this was a character I didn't like. And I knew I didn't like because I knew what she was up to. Like, you could feel it. But that's the power of Sally Hawkins, the performer, where I was just like, God damn, dude, you are absolutely ripping my heart out with this story right now. I was really bowled over. And then on top of that, the villain that she was throughout the movie, very effective and very her way. She didn't go too high. She didn't go too low. She's a craftsman. She knows how to put it just the right way. And even in the end, when she seemingly resurrects Kathy, you look at the anguish on her face of a mother deeply in the state of loss. And I'm bowled over by her. I think she's one of the finest actors working today.
I know the Philippe brothers have said publicly, like, they were stunned when she said she wanted to do this movie, because, like, they reached out and they sent the script, and she got back to them and said she's actually not a big horror fan, but she loved the character of Laura, and that's what drew her to the part and drew her to the movie and ended up doing it. And I've read plenty of interviews that are like, we're still shocked we got her because she's so good. She's incredible. As I said, I compared her earlier to Kathy Bates in Misery. I compared her to Rebecca De Mornay in Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Both those performances, while ultra disturbing, and as I said, there's a level of cruelty in Rebecca De Mornay's character that's just so evil and vile that maybe just absolutely despise that character. Sally Hawkins does that in spades in this movie. So yeah, she's incredible. She's a great actor. To that point, I had to give my best performance in this movie to a young lady named Sora Wong, who plays Piper, who is visually impaired in this movie. She actually is visually impaired in real life. Her film debut. This is her film debut.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Now, we say all the time, we try, we talk about being cruel to children. We talk all the time how kid actors can make or break a movie. That's why, like, I've always been petrified if I ever write a movie to put kids in it, because you get the wrong kid in there, it doesn't work. Go watch a little short film called The Path by a great filmmaker named Patrick Gare and see how a child actor can make a movie. The Path is made by the child actor. I'm not saying your adult actor isn't good in that film. I'm saying, like, the child actor, who is your son, does an incredible job and sells it and works. And it's terrifying. It's creepy. It's scary. It works. And Sora Wong adds a whole other element in this movie. This movie is not, like, I'm not saying there couldn't have been another actor to play this part, but for her film debut to be this freaking good is amazing to me.
Damon, first of all, thank you for the compliment on The Path. The Path is making its rounds at the festivals currently. Listen, my MVP, spoiler alert, is Sora Wong, who plays Piper. So let's just roll right into MVP here. This movie doesn't work without Sora Wong's performance. Her innocence, the sweetness, you as the audience member are invested in her getting out of this thing alive because of what she does as a character, because of what she does as an actor, to convey a sweet and innocent young girl who really is, she's just trying to be a 13-year-old girl. She's very, very sweet. So while the movie doesn't like do all these weird twists and turns and like it tries to trick you and da-da-da-da, no, it's like very linear storyline. It, where you think it's going, it goes. The engine of the movie is my investment as an audience member saying, save this girl. Do not let Piper succumb to the evils that are at bay. Save her. Someone save her. Someone somewhere find a way to save this girl. It's because of that performance. That's why she gets my MVP. Without her and what she did, the movie isn't the same. You need her in this movie. That's a valuable performance, Damon.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's, we did not plan this, I promise you, but when I go MVP, my MVP for this movie was Sally Hawkins. And the reason I give it to Sally Hawkins, not only because her performance is incredible, but also because there is a certain gravitas when you add an actor who is a 2-time Oscar nominee to your performance. And everyone remembers Shape of Water. She was incredible in Shape of Water. Guillermo
so
del Toro
good.
was incredible. I remember when this movie first got announced, and it got announced with Sally Hawkins. Now, if you watch Talk to Me, Sophie Wilde has gone on to do some things. She was in Baby Girl. She's done some other things, and she's kind of becoming a bit of an it girl now, and rightfully so. She's incredible. But that movie wasn't filled with A-list names, and not everyone in that movie has gone on to become an A-list star, Sophie Wilde probably being the biggest. This is kind of the reverse, where you don't, this isn't like this massive production. I mean, yes, A24 is a very legit studio, but this was an Australian production by 2 Australian filmmakers, and I don't know what the budget was, but I can't imagine it was huge. To get Sally Hawkins attached that early on, that's, like, when they announced this, I was like, damn, you got Sally Hawkins. Like, that's impressive. Yeah. So I give her the MVP because right out of the gate, you're setting a certain standard because you have a 2-time Oscar nominee in your lead role.
And what a role she played. Again, Damon, I'll say it again. She gave you everything. You got the full breadth of this character. You got all the complexity of this character, because you will hate her. You will absolutely hate this character, but you will understand her, and some actors don't know how to do that. She does.
Oh, I mean, I hated Kathy Bates. I hated Kathy Bates in Misery, but Kathy Bates was incredible, and she actually did win an Oscar for that.
And she won the Oscar for it because she's a high level actor. Sally Hawkins, high level actor. One of the elites, honestly.
100% agree. Let's move on to best gore / best kill. There are Some pretty nasty moments in this movie. And as I said, I almost feel like in a way it was a reaction to the complaints about Talk to Me. Like, there wasn't enough gore. Like, oh, you want more gore? Well, fuck you. Here's gore. Because boy, do they tack on a lot in this movie.
Holy shit. Yeah, if you thought Riley took a beating and Talk to Me, my best gore actually comes from Ollie, the young boy who is clearly possessed by a demon. This demon at one point becomes ravenous. I mean, very ravenous to the point that he takes a bite out of his own arm and starts to rip and tear the skin away. And they don't cut away, Damon. They show it. They show this kid pulling skin away from his arm in a way that just is like blood curdling, like disgusting, real heavy body horror right there. And I was like, God damn, that's hardcore. That's hardcore to watch like a 10-year-old kid rip the skin from their own arm like that with their teeth. I mean, wow. They doubled down. They said, you want to go hard? We can show you how we can go hard.
And I'll take it one step further and say my best gore. I mean, I want to kind of double up on it, but I guess I'll pick one, which is there's a scene when little Ollie just starts chewing the bar, like the table of the bar.
Oh God!
And he's literally biting into the wood, and his teeth are breaking and snapping off as he's just chomping into this wood, and it's so gross and so disgusting. This poor little kid, you just see his teeth getting ravaged, but he just keeps chomping and literally chewing into this wood like he's a woodchuck. It's insane. And the reason I said there's another one, there's an earlier one where Andy tries to be nice to Ollie, and he gives him a piece of fruit on the end of a knife that he cuts, and the kid grabs the knife and starts eating the fruit. Andy turns back, and the kid's literally gnawing on the fucking knife. Like, he's literally just,
so
it's
hardcore.
Just, like, this chewing thing with poor Ollie, man, it got pretty gross. So I would say the table was a little nastier, so that'll be my pick, but the knife scene is equally just as bad.
Oh, the table scene, the people behind me were like, oh my God. They were not ready for whatever they were watching. It was fucking hardcore.
Yeah. Let's go to best scare. I actually flip-flopped our categories here. Best scare, this is a sort of horror movie. It's a horror movie, but not in the traditional sense of horror movie, I would say. What was your best scare in Bring Her Back? I keep wanting to say Talk to Me. They're both 3-word titles. Bring Her Back.
There was a moment that I could feel the entire audience like jump, like there was a big jump, and that was Sally is, Laura is looking at Ollie through the mirror, and he's not looking good, right? And out of nowhere, I think there's like the mirror's like fogging up or something, and she wipes at the mirror, and in the mirror, it's not Ollie, it's like the demon. So you get this just a glimpse, and the stinger hits. It's like a classic jump scare. It fucking rocked the whole theater. I felt the whole of the theater just shift back a little bit because everybody got caught off guard by that. It was one of those just freaky little moments.
So the real answer, the one that really got me, that fucked with me, was the scene, and it was just that line where Laura says to Piper, she's like, okay, now I got to go drown you in the pool. It's so fucked up. You're like, God damn it.
Yeah.
So dark. But I think the one that got me, just the good surprise of it all, just the jump scare of it all, is when Laura runs over the social worker and Andy with her car.
It's such a gnarly scene.
They find out, like, the social worker finally figures out that, yes, Laura is completely fucked up, and she's keeping her daughter's dead body in a freezer in her, I don't know, like her shed outside the house. And so she's like, we got to get out of here. And then here comes Laura with the car. She just plows over Andy and the social worker out of nowhere. And so, like, in terms of, like, shock value or, I guess, jump scare, that's the one I was like, God damn, I didn't see that coming. I knew something was going to happen, but I didn't expect her to run them over with her car.
From that moment on, I was like, how the fuck did they shoot that scene? It's so seamless. It looks like they just ran over two people. It's so disturbing. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like the craftsmanship of this movie. Again, you said it earlier, very well made movie. When they run over the social worker, I was like, Jesus, they fucking ran over the social worker. Like, it looks so fucking real.
And there's a scene later on when Piper comes back to the house and she figures out that Laura's batshit, and she goes and locks herself in the bathroom and she finds Andy's dead body. Oh man, that's a rough scene too.
Oh,
Because there's certain times you watch, and I know it goes back to the cruelty of children, but there's just certain moments where like you want to see these characters survive. And like I was like, God, Andy got the rawest deal of all, man. This
he
poor kid, he
did.
just wanted to protect his sister, and he was like actually a good kid and was doing everything possible to protect his sister, and he ends up dying. It's just like, man, it's rubbish. She finds him there, and she feels his face and his braces, and that's when she knows it's Andy, and he's dead. It's fucking rough.
This movie's hardcore, dude. I think a lot of people aren't ready for it. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Patrick, next category. This is maybe kind of fun, but also a bit somber, and that's the fucking tone of this movie. Uh, who would you bring back? In this movie, it's Laura bringing her dead daughter, Kathy, who we get the idea that she hit her head, fell in the pool, and drowned, is what the idea of the movie is. That's what, the whole sense of the movie is she drowned in the pool after hitting her head. She tries to bring back her daughter, Kathy. So, Patrick, who are you bringing back? Who are you running the demon ritual with and torturing poor Ollie? And who are you bringing back from the dead?
Damon, Ollie is helping me bringing back the one and only Mr. Tony Todd. I'm not ready to let go of him. I know none of us are, by the way. That the horror community is still very much in mourning of the loss of Tony Todd. Um, I, it is a somber note, but it's true. I want him back. I know he had so many more years to give. It was he was gone too soon. There's no question about it. So if I'm gonna bring anybody back, I got to bring back Tony Todd.
So my first instinct, and we were talking about this before the show, my first instinct was Wes Craven because, one of my all-time favorite filmmakers,
Yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street. But I had a slight change of pace here, and I said, you know what? There's a lot of his art. He did get to make a lot of stuff. He got to make a lot of great movies before he was gone. Still gone too soon, don't get me wrong, but he did get to create a lot of art before he was gone. So my pick was none other than Alice in Chains frontman Lane Staley. He was one
ooh,
of the famous members of the 27 Club, people who died at 27, famously Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, a lot of guys of that era. And I'm a big Alice in Chains fan. I love Alice in
it's my
Chains.
favorite band.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and I actually got to see Alice in Chains after when Jerry Cantrell had taken over, and it was still really cool to see them perform
with
all the
Duvall,
songs.
right?
Yeah. So I got to see them perform a lot of the Alice in Chains songs, but man, just to get like one more Lane Staley Alice in Chains song would just be like I just like to hear that voice because his voice is incredible. I love Alice in Chains, so I'd
I
like to bring
love
Lane
Alice
Staley
in
back.
Chains, dude. I don't buy band T-shirts anymore. I just don't. First of all, I have too many goddamn T-shirts. But there was an Alice in Chains shirt, and I was like, I have to have it. I bought a band T-shirt like last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
I was like, I have to have it. They're the best.
I collect vinyl. I'm a vinyl guy. I love vinyl records. And my record store here in Columbus that I shop at had a special edition of Jar of Flies and Sap, the two EPs, both out of print. Now they've since re-released Jar of Flies and a vinyl that you could buy for like $25 online, but they've never re-released Sap. And the vinyl is a double vinyl. It's Sap and Jar of Flies. And I dropped way too much money to get them together, so I actually could get the Sap and Jar of Flies vinyl together because I love Alice in Chains. So yeah, Lane Staley is my pick.
Can I throw one honorable mention in here? Because it really jogged my memory when you said somebody who had potential to show more stuff. Jeff Barnaby. Does that name ring a bell to you?
It does not.
Jeff Barnaby directed a little film that you and I praised left, right, and center, Blood Quantum. Jeff
Oh yeah.
Barnaby
Oh, that's right.
Jeff Barnaby gone way too soon. The man directed a very interesting, very cool take on the zombie genre called Blood Quantum. Hardcore movie too, by the way. We're talking about hardcore movies. Like that movie goes hard as fuck. Um, I got to talk with him a little bit on Twitter. You know, he was a nice guy. He was out there promoting stuff. He got hit with cancer at a very young age, and he died. That guy had a great potential to be an incredible director. He showed so much potential with Blood Quantum. It felt like a big, huge movie. I was like, this guy could direct a Star Wars movie if he wanted to. Like he had that, there was that much depth and richness to his movie. So honorable mention goes to Jeff Barnaby for the hardcore people out there who watched a movie like Blood Quantum. Which, by the way, if you want to hear our review on that, it's back somewhere way in the backlog. Yeah, Jeff Barnaby gone too soon.
And Blood Quantum, if I'm not mistaken, was a Shutter original. I think it was.
I don't
Um,
know. I know I saw it on Shudder.
I know it was on Shudder. So yeah, seek it out. It's a really good movie. This is going back to our early days of the show. So if you haven't heard that episode or you're new to our show, go check out Blood Quantum. It's an incredible movie. Definitely worth your time. Patrick, next category. Can we survive this horror film? Now, this is a messed up category because I guess we got to put ourselves in, I guess, the Andy role, sort of, because we're the older brother, I guess would be the way to say it. So are we making it out of here? Because I'll tell you right now, as the guy who had more criticisms of this movie and didn't enjoy it as much, Andy tries. And I understand the point of the movie is he can't save his sister. That's the entire plot of poor Andy. He dies a terrible death. Luckily, Piper does get away. But I think if I'm Andy, I'm just like, fuck this broad. I'm taking my sister. As soon as the first weird shit happens the first couple of nights, here's the thing that this is kind of, I won't say it drove me crazy, but it's kind of like in the movie, Andy has a car. He takes his dad, so they have a car. They drive to Laura's place. I'm just like, fuck this. I'm grabbing Piper. We're jumping in the car. We're getting the fuck out of Dodge. So I survived because there's nothing in this world that's going to make me stick around this crazy loony lady for as long as they do.
You know what made me sad about Andy is that I realized he was a 17-year-old kid, and he's still a kid. I mean, he's less than 7 years older than my 10-year-old son. Like, I'm like, damn, like, he's just a kid. Like, he's trying his damnedest, but like, there's all these little mistakes he makes that you and I wouldn't make because we're older and we just have enough experience under our belt to go, I'm not doing that. And he doesn't have it. And I was like, fuck, that's like one of his crutches. It was just a really smart thing. And I don't know how well designed that was, but it was true to the character. The character was going to fuck up because he's too young to know to make those right decisions. And so he bummed me out. But to answer your question, Damon, I think I do survive this horror film. Or I don't, because maybe I'm like the social worker and I just get plowed, like fully plowed. You know what I mean? Like, that social worker actually is the one who drove me the most nuts because I was like, there's a red flag. He's saying there's another kid at the house. You immediately need to go over there with a peace officer and figure it out. Like she was just sort of wishy-washy about it, and she pissed me off more than anybody in this movie.
I give her a slight pass because she said that Laura worked at the social worker office.
Yeah, she knew her and all this stuff. So
I give her a slight pass because she just didn't buy that Laura was that loony, and by the time she figured it out, it was already too late, and she was eating Fender on the way out of the movie. So.
Just she gets fucking destroyed.
Yeah. Patrick, next category, remake, sequel, or leave it alone. This is the category, of course, self-explanatory. We take whatever movie we're reviewing and we say, should they remake it, should they sequelize it, or should they leave it alone? Talk to Me is a great example of that because they are doing a sequel for Talk to the number 2 me.
Talk 2.
So bring her back. Do you want a remake? Do you want a sequel? Or do you want to just leave it alone?
For this, I would say leave it alone. I think first of all, the Philippi brothers are going to be busy with Talk to Me, so they got things to do, and I believe they're talking about a Talk to Me universe. Like there's going to be a movie about where the hands came from, like the whole bit. Like they have a lot on their plate with regards to this. I like it how it sits. I feel like, with time, I'm going to have different ways of looking at this movie. I'm looking forward to watching it again, actually, believe it or not. But it's one of those movies that doesn't beg for a sequel, in my opinion.
So you're not wrong, and I'm not here to tell you that I'm a better filmmaker, writer than the Philippi brothers. I'm certainly not. But my answer to this category is remake, because there were a lot of elements of this movie that I did like. But the elements that I didn't like, in particular, the supernatural elements, the ritual, the videotape, that kind of stuff. And then, I'm not saying, like, as I said earlier, I'm not saying you can't be cruel to children. There's so much relentless cruelty in this movie towards children. It just kind of was off-putting to me personally.
Sure. Yeah.
And I understand this would be a totally different movie if he didn't have that in there. But me, it's remake. And I'm not even saying take out the cruelty to children. Have the cruelty in there because that's just an element of this movie. But just make some of it make more sense. At least make it make more sense. Or, as you said, don't even have it in there. Like, pull out some of that stuff and just, let us know that I like my version where she's just a batshit fucking wackadoo lady thinking she could bring her daughter back from the dead, that actually there's nothing supernatural about it. She's just Looney Tunes. Like, that would be fine with me. So that's my remake. So I would say remake.
Yeah, fair enough.
Last category, Patrick, is it scary? So at the end of the day, Bring Her Back. Is it scary?
I will say this movie is very dreadful. I think this movie is drenched in dread. I think it's drenched in shock. I think there are things in this that will deeply disturb you. I think this is what this kind of movie is. I think the people behind me are still fucked up probably right now. I'm guessing right now they're upset. It's one of those kind of movies. I'm not going to be like scared to keep the lights off. Although there's like there's like this demon aspect of this movie that like, oh, you know, what if there's the demon looking for you? You know, you can think about it like that. If you're that kind of person and you're superstitious, it might scare you that way. But I didn't find this movie particularly scary. I just find it incredibly dreadful.
I always like to, when I go to movies with my girlfriend, I like to use her as a gauge because she's more of the quote unquote casual moviegoer versus like you and I who are just
at this point. She ain't casual no more, Damon. We're about 280 movies deep now.
We are two twisted sick fucks, and our significant others are not quite to that level yet. I would assume your wife is not quite there as much as my girlfriend.
Oh, Damon, she saw Art the Clown at a Halloween festival. She went running to go take a picture with him. Yeah. She's all the way in.
But my girlfriend, first thing she said, we were walking to the car, and she said, "So what'd you think?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, it's kind of mixed feelings." She's like, "It wasn't scary at all." And I was like, all right, you kind of like, that. I like to use that gauge when she says that. She's like, it wasn't scary at all. I will say this movie is disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
It's messed up,
mm-hmm.
but not scary. And I understand, like, it's, you know, for some people, disturbing is scary. Just like, you know, some people watch gore and they're like, that doesn't scare me. It's just gross. That's fine. So if disturbing is scary to you, then this is a scary movie. But for me, there was never a moment where I was like, you know, oh my God, this is too much, or it's too gross, or it's too this, or too that. It was just it was a off-putting movie for a lot of the themes and things in there. And it's gonna be there's gonna be people who are gonna watch this and say, I never want to watch this again, kind of like how I felt about Green Mile. And that's okay too. So disturbing is the way I would describe this movie.
Sounds good to me.
Bring Her Back is in theaters right now. You can hear we have a slightly mixed opinion on this one, myself versus Patrick. Patrick seems to enjoy this one more than I did. I'll tell you right now, this is not going to be on my top 5 at the end of the year. But, you know, we'll see. Maybe I'll revisit it down the road and have a different opinion. I did about Midsommar, so you never know.
That was a shocker.
Yeah. Exactly.
Talk about shock value. Go listen to that episode and the way Damon did a 180.
I promise you that will never happen with Halloween Ends. I'll tell you that right now. It's never going to happen with that movie. I am a completist. If you can see the Blu-rays behind me, like, I'm a completist. I need to own the complete set of everything. I still have never bought Halloween Ends. I refuse to fucking buy that movie. So
as far as you're concerned, the movie ends at Halloween Kills?
Yes, that's how much I dislike that movie. I own Freddy's Dead. I own every
Freddy's Dead.
I own all of them. I refuse to own Halloween Ends. That should tell you.
That's amazing.
That is our episode for this week, Patrick. We are rolling right in next week. We have another new movie coming out. It's a smaller film, but it's actually getting some buzz right now, called Dangerous Animals. Starring Jai Courtney. We're going to review that next week, so stay tuned for that. Bring Her Back is in theaters right now, so go check it out. Go check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and over on our YouTube channel, just search Rewind of the Living Dead, and you'll find us on all those places. And you can also find us over on our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com. You'll also find extra movie reviews, articles, trailers, all kinds of good stuff over there. So check us out over there. You got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review. How did you feel about Bring Her Back? Hit us up on social media anytime. We are on Twitter/X, Facebook, and on Instagram. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead, and you'll find us over there. We always do our best to try to respond to all your comments and all of your questions, so send us messages over there. We will always do our best to get back to you. So Rewind of the Living Dead on all your social media platforms. Find us over there. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, to everyone that tunes in the show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.